Are you?
Don't hurt me.
Can I help?
They won't let me die. Nothing is allowed to die. Tell them I need help. Okay? Amy needs help. No!
Are you okay?
I don't know. I want to go home.
Oh,
All right, fine. I'll talk about Soma. I've wanted to talk about Soma for a while, actually. It's one of the most profound horror experiences I've had in a long time. It's sort of entrenched in my mind at this point. One of those horror experiences that just takes roots and burrows its way into the corners and crevices of my brain. It's not loud, it's not even obtrusive, but there it sits, a growth of unnatural organic matter, fleshy, gobby bits and tendrils worming their ways into the rusty machinery of my mind. A morbid fusion of flesh and metal and something that was once human and might still be a little bit, or it might have never been human at all. And I've just described my own brain as the horror inherent to Soma itself. And if that doesn't tell you just how much Soma deserves your attention, then nothing will. Honestly, I've rewritten this script a couple of times now. And none of my rewrites are for lack of something to say. Instead, it feels like there's so much to say about Soma, so many different little nuances and aspects of what it does to your mind and the thoughts that it compels within you, that I just don't even really know where to start or end or middle or any of it. There's so many horrible things in this game, so many ways that it touches on different disturbing thoughts and ideas in subtle, nuanced, and brilliant ways that it's hard to even get through them all without spiraling into one giant circular thought process, kind of like how I'm doing right now, if I'm being honest. I have more than a little bit of trouble narrowing down and putting into a concrete analysis just what Soma did so damn well. Like Simon Jarrett, the protagonist that we play as throughout Soma, the closer I look at the horror and try to focus on the specific details, the more maddening it becomes, until my thoughts become cyclical and an amalgamated mess of, what the fuck is happening? What is a human? Am I even real? Is any of this actually happening? What is reality? Oh God, Elon was right. We're all in a simulation. Yeah. Welcome to Soma. Giant, huge spoiler warning here. I'm going to discuss pretty much everything in Soma. There's going to be very little left to the imagination. Don't watch past here if you haven't already played Soma and you have any intention to at any point at all. I am going to blow the whole load all over this video. Phrasing. If you haven't played Soma yet, shame on you, go play it. If nothing else, it is well worth playing just so you can firsthand relate to the mental scarring that I now have to live with. Soma's a tricky game to summarize. It's not particularly long, but there are surprising amounts of narrative, plot, lore, and world building going on, along with some surprisingly complex and cerebral ideas woven throughout the narrative that are integral to both the horror aspects of the game and just the overall plot synopsis. We follow the strange and twisted journey of Simon Jarrett, a young Canadian living in 2015 who finds himself with a traumatic brain injury from a car accident. As the game opens, Simon undergoes an experimental brain scan in the hopes of some deeper understanding of his progressive and ultimately fatal brain bleed. Something seems to go unnervingly wrong, and Simon wakes from his scan to find himself in a strange, dark facility that looks utterly foreign to anything he knows. And it's here that the true nightmare of Soma begins. This is Pathos 2, an advanced research facility built deep on the ocean's floor of the northern Atlantic Ocean, and it has seen better days. It quickly becomes obvious that Pathos 2 is falling apart, the entire facility in various stages of decaying shambles. shambles with power outages, failing infrastructure, destruction, and the ever-present sea encroaching on the man-made facility, threatening to sweep the entirety of Pathos 2 away. Simon faces many threats in Pathos 2, from the potential collapse of the facility around him to the strange machines wandering the abandoned halls, some of them monstrous and deformed. Some of them seemingly eerily human-like. And all of them entirely batshit crazy.
Are you blind? It's me, Carl Semkin. Wrangler? Any of this sound familiar to you?
Are you human?
Shit, did my body give it away? I try hard staying mystery. Yeah, I'm human. Are you?
All of this and not a single human in sight. Simon uncovers many truths during his frightening journey through Pathos 2. More significant than where he is when. Somehow, in the blink of an eye as his brain was scanned, Simon seemingly blacked out in Canada in 2015, only to wake up in Pathos 2, deep under the ocean in the year 2104. Well, that's jarring, but perhaps not as jarring as learning that recently a comet has struck the Earth with such force that all life on the surface was eradicated, leaving only the scant handful of humans living on Pathos 2 deep under the ocean as the sole remaining humans on Earth. By the time Simon wakes up, even that scant handful of people are nowhere to be seen, leaving the last bastion of humanity a derelict, decaying ruin full of macabre and murderous machines. Throughout, Simon is frequently unable to accept the full magnitude of the strange and disturbing changes his life has taken on. Indeed, Simon faces several truths that are so mind-breaking that he outright blocks out the truth, sometimes to the point of perceiving a completely false reality, to cope with the mental strain of his world spiraling so far out of his control that to do otherwise would surely drive him mad.
What the hell? How is this possible? This is insane!
We as the player, meanwhile, are left to absorb the full scope of how twisted Soma's world is, how utterly hopeless Simon's situation grows as he spirals deeper into the darkness. Soma combines several genres of horror throughout the game. This is done in a much more subtle and thoughtful way than something like, say, The Evil Within, which also blended a number of horror genres together, but in a much more direct and in-your-face kind of way. You can look over here or here for the link to that horror masterpiece, and I'll also put the link in the description below. Don't get me wrong, there are certainly some obvious and direct forms of horror at play in Soma. There's the startling fight or flight, or in Soma's case, flight or flight, since you can't do a damn thing to fight back against the mechanical menace that you find yourself hunted by. Then there's the body horror. Like a lot of body horror, there's atmospheric horror in the form of the rapidly crumbling and decaying Pathos 2, a vast labyrinthian research facility built on the ocean floor, which leads inevitably to the actual abyssal darkness of the ocean itself. And I cannot emphasize enough just how much the Abyss Walk messed me up. I still think about it, but we'll get there later. There's psychological horror aplenty and existential horror of multiple varieties, from the troubling question of your own mortality staring you in the face to the very real extinction of humanity, and even the question of what makes you human. What makes you you. Soma piles layer on top of layer of horrible ideas and concepts that really force us, the player, and Simon, the character, to confront some big, uncomfortable, truly horrifying questions about what we are, what kind of existence we are leading, and what would that existence look like if we were to just adjust our idea of what being human looked like just enough to reframe it entirely. It's all horrible. And worse, it's the type of horrible and horrifying that really has to burrow its way into the back of your brain and settle there for a while before you really get it. And at that point, it's so thoroughly wormed itself into your brain that it is impossible to fully look away from just how horrifying Soma really is. One method of terror in Soma is the horrific machines roaming Pathos 2. There are both functional and conceptual horror tied into these murder machines, working separately and in tandem. The horrific nature of the machines and robots of Soma take on an entirely new depth when you understand the full context of exactly what they are, or perhaps more to the point, who. This is going to require a whole other layer of explanation. So listen the fuck up. Pathos 2 has an AI program called the Warden Unit, or the WAU, or maybe the WOW, or the WOW. The WAU runs all the maintenance and general operations and computing systems on Pathos 2. It's pretty much been integrated into all the vital systems of the facility. And I know what you're thinking, this is just going to be some kind of cautionary story of AI's gone rogue, or maybe machines bad, or the AI has decided that all of the humans are a danger and that they must be wiped out for the sake of the Earth's survival because they're a plague on the land, and maybe that might be kind of true if you think about it too long. And so having come to such a conclusion, the AI decides to start picking off the humans one by one. Well, you'd be wrong, but kind of right, sort of. The WAU AI's prime directive was the preservation of human life. After the cataclysmic major extinction event of the comet wiping out all life on the surface, left only the scant few humans alive in Pathos 2, the WAU AI took an interesting approach to the conundrum of how to keep the rapidly dwindling handful of humans alive. That approach being uploading human consciousness into robot bodies. But how could it have done that? Glad that you asked, because boy am I going to tell you. In the future, human consciousness can be copied into data using a scan and uploaded into a neural network or into mini machines and robotic entities in a similar way to an AI program. This process is the culmination of many years of research and development on the human brain and how scanning neural patterns can extrapolate into consciousness. These complex, advanced scans of the human brain originated in the scans that were performed on Simon himself back in 2015, hence why his consciousness has been preserved all this time and finally awakened in 2104. The WAU's prime directive to preserve human life at all cost has some interesting consequences.
It won't let me die. Nothing is allowed to die.
We find several humans entangled and enmeshed in a strange union of machinery, flesh, and the nasty liquid goo known as structure gel. Structure gel is a substance used by the WAU all throughout Pathos 2 for a number of functions, notably to repair damaged systems. Structure gel is also apparently compatible with human beings, if in a fucked up and horrifying way. These humans are kept alive throughout a sort of artificial life support, serving the WAU's prime directive. But in every case, the human in question is in obvious agony, immobilized and kept clinging to life by the barest thread of the WAU life support, unable to move or function, kept technically alive, but in the worst sense possible. This is not the only twisted measure the WAU AI goes to preserve human life. Throughout Pathos 2, we as Simon continuously encounter robots of all kinds, some hostile, some not, some displaying disturbing human-like behaviors and seeming sentient, many of them seeming totally unaware they are robots at all, perceiving themselves as very much human. For the WAU, this macabre fusion of man and machine satisfies its prime directive of preserving human life. The AI seems to deem human consciousness to be all that is important for humanity, with the outward human body being of little consequence. Here is where we see the deeper horror of the roaming robots intent on brutally murdering you in Soma. These are not simple machines operating autonomously, nor are they being driven by some crass, bloodthirsty AI. These robots were all human once, with a human consciousness uploaded into the hardware and body. A human mind or soul or brainwaves or whatever passes for the incorporeal substance of a human consciousness powers these robot circuits. And these vestiges of what was once a human being howl like a savage, desperate animal, and they try to murder you. The understanding that these robots were once humans living out their lives, only to have their consciousness forced into these robot husks, and then go insane and feral. This adds a whole new dimension to every encounter with the mad machines. There are several layers of existential and psychological horror concepts Soma explores that we need to discuss. But first, let's touch on one other more immediate, obvious, and terrifying aspect of the game: the sea. I have a touch, or maybe more than a touch, of thalassophobia, that is, a fear of the deep sea. As a consequence, this made even wandering around the general facility of Pathos 2 a bit of a strain in and of itself. But then the game goes, you know, why waste all this time under the water? Let's go for a dip. What could possibly go wrong?
Shit! Where did I? Oh, fuck!
And now we're out in the ocean and I'm like, thanks, Soma, I appreciate the panic attack. That was great. To put it mildly, whenever we stepped out into the ocean, which was way more times than it needed to be, I had a bit of a problem. Pathos 2 is a vast facility with various wings and branches that spanned a large area of the ocean floor, and most of these areas in the facility are either not connected entirely, or the ways that you used to take to get from one area to the next have broken down and are no longer operable. So Simon has to go for a bit of a walk to get from one area of the facility to the next, and this happens way more than I'm comfortable with. And then Soma says, you know what, this is pretty bad and all, but not good enough. Oh no, not content to just force my thalassophobic ass out into the water in general, the game decides to send us down into the abyss. Yeah, that's right, we go down even further, even deeper, down, 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 where there is absolutely no light, and the crushing weight of the entire ocean, indeed the entire world above us, is squeezing and compressing us until our normal body can't even handle and withstand the pressure that the abyss is putting upon us. And my mind can't take it either. I have a whole thing about abysses specifically. This is a much more concentrated and specific phobia than my thalassophobia, and as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that my fear of abysses is a big part of why I have thalassophobia in the first place. I have a whole video discussing my problem with the abyss, and you can find that linked into one of these corners or once again in the description below if you want to take a pleasant little ride through my crazy ass brain. Suffice to say, the fact that I made an entire video about how mind-fucked I am by the entire idea of an abyss, going through a whole area that is named after one at the bottom of the fucking ocean in Soma, was not on top of my to-do list. This part of the game, all of this, the traipsing through the darkness, the being blown and buffeted around by the raging currents ravaging the deep ocean floor, this fucking anglerfish asshole, and this wild, creepy, entirely too hungry leviathan that hunts you down through the darkness. Yeah, this is about the biggest nope that I could possibly conjure up, and I almost turned the game off during this whole segment. And honestly, when I got to this point of the game, if I had a physical copy of Soma, I would have yeeted that motherfucker out of the window so fast. Then I would have performed an exorcism on my home on the offhand chance that there is a spirit lingering from the absolute demonic horror that is Soma and the Abyss, and then I would have got myself pitch blackout drunk just to rid myself of the memory of the trauma of walking through the abyss. And you know what? I think I'm gonna go do that right now. Excuse me. The Abyss Walk is one of the most fucked up, horrifying, abysmal events that I've ever played through in a game, and whoever designed this part of the game is a sick, sick person. It's brilliant. It is the masterstroke of this game. I cannot commend this single sequence of the game highly enough for just how effective and evocative it is. And I want you to understand that I'm serious here. Hate it with every fiber of my being. While the Abyss Walk is my personal hell and probably the most profound mindfuck for me specifically, I imagine that it's not nearly so bad for people who aren't afflicted with my distinct fear of the sea and abyssal emptinesses. That's okay, because there are several other horrific elements of Soma, and these are where the real mindfucky cerebral type of horror come into play. While Soma has many excellent horror elements at play, it's when we get into this, the existential, psychological, question your own existence type of horror, that the game is really at its peak. What is a human being? What makes you, you? If you were no longer human, would you still be you? These questions lay at the heart of Soma. It's right there in the title of the game. Soma, or the body, distinct and separate from the soul, mind, or psyche. It doesn't take us long to start dabbling in the idea of the body being disconnected from the mind in Soma. Simon encounters his first robot who exhibits an eerily human-like quality and seemingly self-aware personality shortly after waking on Pathos 2. These encounters continue until he meets Catherine. Catherine is likewise in a machine body when we first meet her, but it's one that is all but destroyed and immobile. Through displays and monitors, Catherine at least has a human face for us to relate to, albeit one in digital form. This, combined with her being much more aware of our surroundings and what is actually going on, endear her to us, the player, and Simon, and she becomes our companion in our harrowing journey through Pathos 2. Over the course of Soma, Catherine helps us to understand a number of unsettling existential truths. All the robots we have encountered are people whose consciousness was scanned and then uploaded into their machine bodies by the WAU AI. We ourselves are a product of this scan. Simon's brain was scanned and his consciousness copied all the way back in 2015, only to be placed into a body by the WAU in Pathos 2 nearly 100 years later. Into a body, but not his body. Not even really a human body. Simon can't accept it at first, even seeing himself still inhabiting his own flesh, until a near drowning forces him to accept that he's alive underwater, an impossibility for any living, breathing human being. Simon is now a disturbing blend of human and machine, his consciousness housed within a dead body brought back to life with structure gel from the WAU, a hybrid of body, technology, and the awakening consciousness of a man who died of a terminal brain disease a full century ago. Mankind is doomed. There are no humans left. Even the ones in Pathos 2, every one of them dead, including Simon himself, and only the echoes of human consciousness remain, each of them either a scan held in a sort of unconscious limbo in a database, or stuck in broken down, twisted wrecks of machinery so far from human that it drives them insane just to be housed in the husks of broken steel and circuits. Our entire species extinct. Did I say every human? Actually, almost every human. There's one human left. One last human alive to carry forth our legacy. A scion of the entire human species left to...
Would you stay with me, please? It won't be long now. Please, just stay. What a crazy thing this was. Life. At least I won't have to turn 30. Hooray! Wish I could have died at home with my friends. Simon, you still there?
I'm here, Sarah.
Don't let him die, okay? Send them out there. To the stars.
Fuck. Catherine offers us one small, pathetic last sliver of hope. The scan of all the employees at Pathos 2 can be uploaded into an artificial reality, almost indistinguishable from real life, called the Ark. In the Ark, the consciousness of some vestige of humanity at least can continue. If not in body, then at least in mind, soul, whatever. These mental spaces of consciousness and being separate and distinct from the bodies they inhabit. The question of if humans are still human once they no longer inhabit organic flesh. All of it is unsettling and horrific enough. But this becomes even more complicated when considering the final revelation. One that the player is aware of for much of Soma, but one that Simon himself doesn't come to fully grasp until the very end of the game, when he is scanned one final time to upload into the Ark.
You gotta be kidding me!
4, 3,
Come on, load!
2,
Yes! Fuck yeah, we made it! Woo! I'm still here. I'm still here. Catherine? Catherine?
I'm here.
What the hell happened? What went wrong?
Nothing. They're out there, among the stars. We're here.
No. We were getting on the Ark. I saw it. It finished loading just before it launched.
Yeah, I saw.
Then why are we still here?
Simon, I can't keep telling you how it works. You won't listen. You know why we're here. You were copied onto the Ark. You just didn't carry over. You lost the coin toss. We both did. Just like Simon at Omicron, just like the man who died in Toronto 100 years ago.
No, this is bullshit. We came all this way. We launched the Ark.
I know it sucks, but our copies are up there. Catherine and Simon are both safe on the Ark. Be happy for them.
Are you crazy? We're gonna die down here with those fuckers living at large on a spaceship. They're not us. They're not us.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Simon. I'm proud of what we did. We made sure that something of the hundreds of thousands of years of human history survives, that something lives on.
No. Fuck this. Fuck this. Fuck you. Fuck you, Catherine. You lied. And I believed in you. I trusted you. You said we're getting on the fucking Ark.
We are on the Ark, you idiot! I didn't lie. I can't be responsible for your goddamn ignorance. You
Fuck! Catherine? Please don't leave me alone. Catherine? Catherine?
Somewhere, weightless and wandering through the cosmos, A. Simon and A. Catherine live on, their consciousness preserved bodiless in the Ark. And meanwhile, possibly two Simons are trapped, isolated at the bottom of the sea, surrounded by death and darkness and the decaying ruins of humanity's last failure, shrieking into the void, unable to die, but no longer alive, no longer human. Soma asks us some deep philosophical questions. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? If your body isn't human, are you? If your mind exists but your body does not, what are you then? Are you alive if you are disembodied? Are you human still? What is consciousness? What is reality if it can be simulated and just as real to your mind when it comes from a computer? And what are we when all vestiges of what we conceive of as human life are stripped away? Soma asks many, many questions, but it offers no answers. It makes you mull through those questions and try to find the answers for yourself. I have no answers. I'm still thinking about Soma more than I care to, and I can't seem to stop. And if only a little bit, it's driving me insane.